The HOA president was stealing my mail to harass me, including packages and personal letters. When I reported it to the postal inspector, she set up a federal sting operation with marked mail and surveillance cameras. Barbara thought she was untouchable until federal agents handcuffed her for committing multiple felonies. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. My name is Steve Martinez and I'm about to tell you the most satisfying story of federal justice you've ever heard. It involves an HOA Karen who thought she could steal my mail to harass me, and the postal inspector who set up an elaborate sting operation that landed her in federal prison. By the end of the story, you'll understand why mail theft is a serious federal crime and why you never want to mess with the United States Postal Service. I live in Pine Valley Estates, a middle-class neighborhood in suburban Phoenix, Arizona. I'm a single dad raising my 12-year-old daughter Emma after my wife passed away from cancer 3 years ago. I work as a software engineer from home, which allows me to be there for Emma when she gets home from school. Our neighborhood seemed pretty normal when we moved in 5 years ago. Most of the residents were working families with kids, and the HOA was run by reasonable people who focused on basic maintenance and community events. The monthly fees were fair, and the rules were simple common sense things like keeping your lawn maintained and not parking on the grass. Everything changed when Barbara Chin moved into the biggest house on our street. She was a retired government administrator in her late 50s who had apparently spent her career bossing people around and wasn't ready to give up that power. Within 6 months of moving in, she had gotten herself elected as HOA president and immediately started making everyone's life miserable. Barbara's first target was my family. She seemed to have a personal problem with me being a single father working from home. She would make comments about how Emma needed proper supervision, and how working from home was unprofessional for a neighborhood like ours. She also complained that my house wasn't maintained to her standards, even though it was perfectly fine. The real problem started when Barbara began what she called community compliance inspections. She would walk around the neighborhood with a clipboard, taking pictures of houses and making notes about alleged violations. She was particularly focused on my property, photographing everything from my garbage cans to my mailbox. During one of these inspections, Barbara announced that my mailbox was a safety hazard, because it was slightly tilted. She claimed that crooked mailboxes made the neighborhood look unprofessional, and that I needed to replace it immediately or face daily fines. I looked at my mailbox, which was maybe tilted 2 degrees from perfectly vertical. It was a standard black mailbox that matched every other mailbox on the street. There was nothing wrong with it that couldn't be fixed by tightening one screw. "Barbara," I said as politely as I could, "my mailbox is fine. It just needs a minor adjustment, which I can do this weekend." Barbara's face turned red. "Mr. Martinez, this is exactly the kind of attitude that's bringing down our property values. You work from home, you don't maintain your property properly, and now you're arguing with legitimate HOA authority." Over the next several weeks, Barbara escalated her harassment campaign against my family. She would show up at my house multiple times per week, taking pictures and making notes. She started timing how long my garbage cans stayed at the curb after pickup day. She even complained to the county about my home office, claiming I was running an illegal business. The situation got much worse when Barbara decided that she needed to monitor my mail delivery to document what she called commercial mail violations. She claimed that since I worked from home, I was probably receiving business mail that violated the neighborhood's residential zoning. At first, I just noticed that my mail delivery seemed irregular. Some days I would get mail, other days I wouldn't get anything even though I was expecting packages or important documents. I assumed it was just normal postal service variations and didn't think much about it. Then I started noticing that Barbara Chin seemed to know things about my personal business that she shouldn't know. During one HOA meeting, she made comments about my credit card bills and mentioned that I had received a letter from Emma's school. There was no way she could know these things unless she was somehow accessing my mail. The situation became clear when my neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, pulled me aside after that same HOA meeting. She was an elderly woman who spent most of her day sitting on her front porch, watching the neighborhood activities. "Steve," she said quietly, "I think you should know that Barbara has been taking your mail. I've seen her at your mailbox several times when you're not home, and she always walks away with envelopes." I was shocked. "Are you sure about this, Mrs. Rodriguez?" "I'm absolutely sure," she replied. "I didn't want to get involved in neighborhood drama, but taking someone's mail is a serious crime. You need to do something about this." I immediately started paying closer attention to my mail delivery, and the pattern became obvious. On days when I was out of the house for extended periods, my mail would disappear even though the postal carrier had clearly delivered it. On days when I was home, I would receive normal amounts of mail. To test my theory, I started tracking expected deliveries and packages. I had ordered a new computer monitor for my home office and was tracking the package online. The tracking showed that it had been delivered to my mailbox on a Tuesday afternoon while I was at Emma's school event. When I got home, there was no package. The next day, I saw Barbara Chin loading something that looked like my package into her car. When I confronted her about it, she claimed she had no idea what I was talking about and suggested that maybe the Postal Service had made a mistake. That's when I realized that Barbara wasn't just stealing my mail to snoop on my personal business, she was stealing packages and keeping them for herself. This wasn't just harassment anymore, it was theft. I called the local police to report the mail theft, but the officer who responded told me that mail crimes were handled by the United States Postal Inspection Service, not local law enforcement. He gave me the contact information for the postal inspector and advised me to report the situation to them immediately. The next morning, I called the Postal Inspection Service and spoke with Inspector Janet Williams. She was a no-nonsense federal agent who had been investigating mail crimes for over 15 years. When I explained the situation, she became very interested very quickly. "Mr. Martinez," she said, "mail theft is a serious federal crime. If someone is stealing your mail, we need to document it properly and build a case that will hold up in court. Are you willing to cooperate with an investigation?" I told Inspector Williams that I was absolutely willing to cooperate and that I had a witness who had seen Barbara taking my mail. She scheduled a meeting for the next day to discuss the details and plan our next steps. When Inspector Williams came to my house, she was everything you'd expect from a federal law enforcement officer: professional, thorough, and completely focused on getting the facts. She interviewed me for over an hour, documenting every incident I could remember and taking detailed notes about the timeline of events. Then she interviewed Mrs. Rodriguez, who was nervous about talking to a federal agent but was determined to do the right thing. Mrs. Rodriguez provided specific dates and times when she had witnessed Barbara taking mail from my mailbox. She also mentioned that she had seen Barbara taking mail from other mailboxes in the neighborhood when those residents weren't home. Inspector Williams explained that mail theft was a federal felony punishable by up to 5 years in prison and significant fines. She also told me that the Postal Inspection Service had extensive resources for investigating these crimes and that they took mail security very seriously. "Mr. Martinez," she said, "we're going to set up a controlled operation to catch this person in the act. We'll use marked mail and surveillance to document the theft, and then we'll make an arrest. But I need you to follow my instructions exactly and not do anything that might compromise the investigation." Over the next week, Inspector Williams set up what she called a mail theft sting operation. She coordinated with the local postal carrier to deliver specially marked envelopes and packages to my mailbox on specific days when she knew I would be away from home. The marked mail included fake credit card offers, dummy packages, and even decoy letters that looked like they contained important documents. Each piece of mail was photographed and documented before delivery, and Inspector Williams had arranged for surveillance teams to monitor my mailbox during the delivery and pickup times. On the first day of the sting operation, I took Emma to her soccer practice and made sure to be gone from the house for several hours. Inspector Williams had positioned herself across the street with surveillance equipment, and there were additional agents in unmarked vehicles nearby. According to Inspector Williams, Barbara Chin showed up at my mailbox within 30 minutes of the mail delivery. She was recorded on video opening my mailbox, removing the marked envelopes and packages, and walking back to her house with my mail. But Inspector Williams wanted to build an even stronger case, so she let the operation continue for several more days. Each time, Barbara would wait for me to leave and then steal the marked mail from my mailbox. The Postal Inspection Service was building an ironclad federal case against her. On the final day of the sting operation, Inspector Williams decided to make the arrest. She had coordinated with local law enforcement to provide backup, and she had obtained federal warrants for Barbara's arrest and for searching her home. I was at work in my home office when I heard cars pulling up outside. Through my window, I could see Inspector Williams and several other federal agents walking up to Barbara's front door. Barbara answered the door in her bathrobe, clearly not expecting to see law enforcement officers. "Barbara Chin," Inspector Williams announced in a voice loud enough for the entire neighborhood to hear, "you're under arrest for theft of mail matter, which is a violation of federal law. You have the right to remain silent." Barbara's reaction was immediate and dramatic. She started screaming that this was all a mistake, that she was the HOA president and had the authority to monitor neighborhood mail for violations. She claimed that she was protecting the community from people who were using residential addresses for commercial purposes. Inspector Williams wasn't interested in Barbara's excuses. "Ma'am, stealing mail is a federal crime regardless of your position in the homeowners association. You're going to need to come with us now." As Barbara was being handcuffed and led to the federal agent's car, neighbors started coming out of their houses to see what was happening. The sight of the HOA president being arrested by federal agents for mail theft was shocking to everyone in the community. While Barbara was being processed for arrest, other agents executed the search warrant on her house. What they found was even more shocking than I had expected. Barbara had been stealing mail from multiple residents for months, and her house was full of other people's packages, letters, and personal documents. Inspector Williams called me that evening to update me on what they had discovered. "Mr. Martinez, this woman had mail from at least 12 different households in your neighborhood. She was running a systematic mail theft operation, keeping packages for herself and reading other people's personal correspondence. The evidence included packages containing electronics, clothing, and household items that Barbara had stolen from various neighbors. She had also kept personal letters, bank statements, and credit card offers from multiple families. Some of the stolen mail dated back several months. The federal charges against Barbara Chen were serious and extensive. She was charged with multiple counts of mail theft, each carrying a potential sentence of up to 5 years in federal prison. The total value of the stolen items was over $5,000, which made it a felony-level offense. But the legal consequences were just the beginning of Barbara's problems. Word of her arrest spread quickly through the neighborhood and the broader community. The local newspaper picked up the story, and it went viral on social media. Barbara Chen became known as the HOA president who was arrested by federal agents for stealing her neighbor's mail. The HOA board immediately held an emergency meeting to remove Barbara from her position as president. The board members were embarrassed and angry that their organization had been led by someone who was committing federal crimes against the very residents she was supposed to serve. The new HOA leadership reached out to all the affected residents to apologize for Barbara's criminal behavior. They also implemented new oversight procedures to prevent future abuse of authority by HOA officials. Meanwhile, Barbara was trying to deal with the federal criminal case against her. She hired an expensive lawyer, but the evidence was overwhelming. The Postal Inspection Service had video footage of her stealing mail, photographs of the stolen items in her possession, and testimony from multiple witnesses. Barbara's lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but Inspector Williams and the federal prosecutor weren't interested in being lenient. Mail theft was a serious crime that affected the security and privacy of multiple families, and they wanted to send a clear message that this behavior wouldn't be tolerated. The case went to federal court, where Barbara Chen pled guilty to multiple felony charges. The judge sentenced her to 18 months in federal prison, followed by 2 years of supervised probation. She was also ordered to pay restitution to all the victims and to perform 200 hours of community service. But the criminal conviction was just part of Barbara's punishment. The publicity from the case destroyed her reputation in the community and beyond. She became a cautionary tale about HOA abuse and the importance of respecting federal law. Barbara was also sued civilly by several of the victims, including myself. The lawsuits sought damages for invasion of privacy, theft, and emotional distress. Barbara's homeowner's insurance refused to cover the claims because they were related to criminal activity, so she was personally liable for all the damages. Faced with mounting legal costs, restitution payments, and civil lawsuit judgments, Barbara was forced to sell her house and move away from the area. She lost her home, her savings, and her freedom because she thought she could steal mail with impunity. The incident had some unexpected positive effects on our neighborhood. The residents became much more aware of mail security and started looking out for each other's deliveries. The new HOA leadership focused on legitimate community concerns instead of petty harassment campaigns. Inspector Williams became something of a local hero for her thorough investigation and professional handling of the case. She was invited to speak at community meetings about mail security and federal crime prevention. As for me and Emma, we finally had peace in our neighborhood. My mail started arriving regularly and securely, and we no longer had to worry about an unstable HOA president harassing our family. Emma was particularly happy that the mean lady, who had been bothering us, was gone. The case also served as an important reminder about federal law enforcement. Many people don't realize that the United States Postal Inspection Service is one of the oldest federal law enforcement agencies and that they take mail crimes very seriously. Barbara Chen learned the hard way that stealing mail isn't just a prank or a minor violation. It's a serious federal crime with serious consequences. Today, our neighborhood operates peacefully under new HOA leadership that respects residents' rights and focuses on legitimate community concerns. My mailbox still tilts slightly to one side, but nobody cares because we have more important things to worry about than perfectly aligned mailboxes. Barbara Chin served her full sentence in federal prison and was released to supervised probation. She moved to another state and hopefully learned her lesson about respecting other people's mail and federal law. The last I heard, she was working at a retail job and trying to rebuild her life after her criminal conviction. The incident taught me an important lesson about standing up to bullies and using proper legal channels to address criminal behavior. Sometimes the best way to deal with harassment is to document everything carefully and contact the appropriate authorities. In this case, those authorities were federal agents with the resources and expertise to handle mail crimes properly. Inspector Williams always said that mail theft cases were some of her favorites because the evidence was usually clear and the law was straightforward. There's no ambiguity about whether taking someone else's mail is a crime, it's always illegal, and it's always prosecuted to the full extent of federal law. Barbara Chin learned that lesson the hard way, and our entire neighborhood learned the importance of protecting mail security and respecting federal law. Sometimes justice comes in the form of federal agents with handcuffs, and sometimes the most satisfying revenge is simply letting the law take its course.